Okay, so hello everyone. Good morning to you all, and welcome to Textilers. Okay, so we started this training say 3 weeks ago, and we're looking at the Azure. That's the AZ900 course. So we're going through this course to understand the fundamentals, and so far so good. We have gone through the introductory parts where we talked about cloud computing, the types of cloud computing, the different service offering, and the benefits, including capex and opex. After which we moved to module 2, where we talked about the different uh, regions, Azure regions. We were able to understand the region pairs, Azure geography, Azure availability zone, Azure resources. We try to understand what resource group is, what resource manager is, what subscription is. We even went further to talk about the Azure management group, and we looked at some of the core Azure services, the likes of Azure VM app service, in which we also did a demonstration, for those things. We'll still continue in that light, and we're also going to do hands-on. So what we'll do is we'll do the hands-on towards the end of the slide, rather than after each slide like we had last week. Okay, for the benefit of those that are just joining us, my name is Oluwatosin Yanishere, and I'm a instructor for textilers specializing in Azure and Microsoft 365, of which I will be your instructor for this training, which is the Azure class. So I'm not taking Microsoft 365 course here. Okay, so our house rules remains the same, but if you're joining us for the first time, we would encourage that you should at every point in time be on mute. If you're not speaking or probably asking questions or trying to contribute to the class, we would appreciate you muting your mic such that others are not distracted in any way. Then, if you need to ask question, kindly use the raise your hand icon. Or yes, sometimes I may not see that indication that you raise your hand, probably because I'm engrossed with the teaching. However, you can freely unmute to call my attention. That's very well fine by me. And of course, you can also use the chat window where you can drop maybe comments or questions or contribution that you want to make to the learning. So that's our house rule. And one more thing I observed earlier today, that some of us do go ahead to initiate the meeting. Okay, so please, to avoid confusion, we only have one meeting link, which is the Microsoft Azure Cohort 2. Okay, that's the meeting link that we should always join, which means if you by any chance get to the training before me, which I think I always try to ensure I get here before everyone, but if you by any chance, get here before me, let's maintain the same channel. That way we don't get to confuse any other person. We just maintain the same Microsoft Azure class Cohort 2, and that's the link we'll be using every time we want to do this training. Our training time is 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., which means it's 2 hour session. But there would be slight change today, and I would sincerely apologize for that. The reason being that I'll be jumping into the Microsoft 365 class to take the training for Microsoft 365. So if you don't mind, we are just going to be spending an hour, roughly an hour. But don't worry, we are going to complete this module training as well as try some hands-on, which means I would demonstrate to us the lab that we will be doing. So please, rather than doing 2 hours, I would just seek your permission such that I'm able to jump into M365 to take that training as well. Thank you. So that's our house rules and announcement as well. And let's get started. I've told us what we've done so far. So today we are going to be concentrating on looking at Azure networking services. The same way we have, the different compute services, like VM, VNet is also part of it and all. So we are going to concentrate and be looking at the Azure networking services. Now, for those of us that were asking the other time, like which part exactly, should I focus on? And I remember answering us that based on the different offerings, Azure is large. Thank God this is just the basics that will help you understand, okay, which part you want to. And all of these basics we are talking about, they have their own core, course that you may want to take maybe for advanced or intermediate or advanced that way. Now this is 900, which means it's basic. We'll talk about everything, but subsequently you can now advance to say, okay, from here I would like to take 104, which is administrator, to get that intermediate or associate level, or I want to advance to become an expert. You can now look at AZ 303, 304 and thereabout. And if you want to specialize to say, okay, I just want to do networking, there, I think that's easy 400, where you can just concentrate on networking. If you want to concentrate on, DevOps and all these other services, we have different courses for that. That's just to let give us an idea or an overview of the way Azure is set up. Now, not to waste too much time, let's dig in immediately. Now, these are networking services. We have the likes of VNet, we have the likes of VPN and ExpressRoute. And what do we understand by VNet anyway? Um, I would say VNet is that particular service that actually enables Azure resources to be able to communicate with each other. Remember, we have different Azure resources, which Azure VM as a virtual machine is one of it. Now, in order for these, virtual machines to communicate with each other or communicate with other resources, then VNet is the, key ingredient here. In essence, the VNet, which we refer to the virtual network, that's the Azure Virtual Network, is actually, should I say, fundamental building blocks for any private network that we have within Azure. That's the way VNet is formed. And when it comes to VNet, the way it operates is it requires this fundamental concept whereby we would use the likes of, there's something called address space, subnets, regions, as well as there's a need for subscription to be able to use this VNet. So I'm going to be doing the demonstration of how we can create VNets. Okay, but for now, I'll do that at the end of the slide. So that's what this VNet entails. If there's anything that you would take home, the idea from what VNet is, for basics, is the fact that it's that VNet is that infrastructure that enables you to securely connect to Azure resources, such that these resources are able to communicate with each other. Okay, that's what the VNet does. So in a way, I could just say this VNet is like the representation of your own network on the cloud. For those of us that are familiar with on-premises, and I know we have people who doesn't have the basic knowledge. So the way it is maybe in traditional on-premises, which means nothing that has to do with cloud, where organization gets to set up their network. Okay, the same way in the cloud, this network now we refer to it as VM in the cloud. Okay, so that's what VNet is about. Now, there's also something called virtual private network, which is VPN. Okay, and for VPN, it's also that service that we use to encrypt traffic between the Azure Virtual Network. Basically, I would say between the cloud as well as our on premises. That way, we it makes a clearer sense to us. And let me explain further what I meant by VPN. Now, basically VPN, you can use this VPN. Let me give us a scenario so that you understand what this VPN means before I give us the definition in a way. So let me give us a scenario like this. I think I've done a project before, and that project is actually a school, you know, higher education institute. Now, during the COVID period, these people, of course, the students as well as employees of that particular school gets to work from home. Now, the what the school wanted to achieve more is the fact that while people are working from home, they shouldn't have reason, to come to school. Now, let me paint it better. Before COVID, everyone, whenever it's time for class, when I mean school, I'm not talking about secondary school and everything. I'm talking about advanced. So they all get to go to the physical, premises. That's what I mean. The school location where everyone they have their laptop, they are connected to the network. That's the um, organization's network, which is the school in this instance, and they get their work done. They connect to the different application they need to get their work done and all of it. That's the way it works for them. Now there's COVID, and what it means is people are going to be working from different locations from their home using their own network. Okay. Now, because some of the application the school uses, you know, is being hosted in their maybe on-premises infrastructure. So the idea is this school uses both hybrid. I'm sure we know what hybrid cloud is right now. That's the combination of private and public cloud. I'm sure we know what that means. So now this school basically has an application that is hosted on their on-premises, which means before they can access to it, they need to be on their corporate network. Now, don't forget COVID had happened, which means people cannot come to school and people cannot connect directly to the school network. I don't know if you're following this scenario, just to give you an idea of the way VPN works. Now, the solution for that is while people are working from different locations, from their houses and different places, they would use their own private network or home network. Maybe some of them will connect using Swift. Maybe some of them will connect using MTN or Glo or any network that gives them this access to the internet to use. They could use any of those. Students use this just like you're connected. I really don't know what network you're using, but of course you're using one private network or home network or the other to join this training. Okay, the same way these students who could not go to school because of the COVID restriction, this is as of last year, that has to work from home. They use their different private network to connect. Now, that particular application, because their system is domain joined, which means their system, which was given to them in school, is connected to the corporate network. When I mean corporate network, the school's network. Okay. Now, some of the application would not work because they need to be on school's network. Now, this is where VPN comes in. So what happened is VPN is a solution in the sense that you have to deploy a VPN on the students system such that whatever internet they use with the VPN, they can now connect directly to the school's network. So in a way, this is what I'm describing for VPN. VPN, okay, this is VPN gateway. Now the VPN gateway is also a type of networking device, and the idea is it connects two or more devices or network together in a VPN infrastructure. Just like the scenarios I've painted to us, the design is just to bridge connection, such that there's communication between two or more sites. I don't know if you're following me, please. Now you are at home, you're using your private network, you're trying to access a particular, application that is directly on the connector. So the idea is with VPN, you will be able to connect directly to the school network. regardless of the type of network or ISP you have that you're connected to on your computer. So that's the idea of VPN. Now, the VPN gateway itself can either be maybe a router, it can be a server, it can even be a firewall, because basically it's a device, and it has this data transmission capability. Okay, so in most cases, okay, the VPN gateway is usually maybe like a physical router device in excuse me most cases. And this can be installed in what is called like the VPN site, or probably the VPN infrastructure. Okay, so that's that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to go, too deep, but I believe you're able to get that idea of what the VPN gateway is. Now, equally, besides the VPN gateway, we also have the Azure Express route. Okay, and the Azure Express route is also part of the networking services. And basically, this express route, the way it works is the express route would let you to extend maybe the service, your on premises network directly to the Microsoft cloud. That's what this express route is, just by the way the name implies. When we say express, it means very fast and all. So the um the way it works is you can use this express route. You will use it to create a private communication, most of the time between the Azure data center, which I would say is the cloud in this instance, as well as your own traditional on-premises. That's, I mean, organization, their own data center, their own on-premises environment. That's what you use this express route to do. And please, let's note that the express route connection usually would not go over the public internet, and that's why we said private connection. Okay, basically the express routes do offer like a faster speed, giving us that lower latency, rather than using the regular internet connection. So we have different types of express route, which I believe we are still going to do a little bit deep dive as we move on. So understand that basically, because with that express route, we have express route when it comes to express route encryption, and express route direct. So, but right now, let me not try and confuse us. Let me not confuse us at all. I'm sorry. I will talk about that more. The idea is just to introduce this to you so that you understand the different services that we have within Azure, and give us like a background. So I don't know if we have any question regarding Azure networking services. If not, I may just move on. Let me see the chat window if there's any question. Okay, so we'll take your silence for no question, for now, or we'll just wait till the end of this, slide, probably to take any question that we may have in mind. So please prepare your question and, start scribbling whatever you want to ask down. Now, moving on, we equally have the Azure Storage Service. Azure Storage Service. Don't forget, we are talking about the core services. So we have the Azure Storage Service, and when it comes to Azure Storage, it's something that is being required, especially for those of us that have to, while working, we need to store different data, we need to store different files, and all of this. So we have this Azure, the storage services as well. Now, part of that storage services, we have the likes of container storage, the blob, we have the disk storage, we have Azure files, and these are the various, or should I say, different storage that we have. Okay, so and basically, so let's take it one after the other, starting with what's it called, the container blob storage. Now for the container blob storage, I would say we have different kind of storage. Before I delve into this, now we have different kind of storage. We have the likes of Azure Blob Storage, we have Azure Disk Storage, we have Azure File Storage, and these are the different storage that are listed here on the screen, the different kind of storage that we have. And before you can even delve into this particular storage, you need to always have a storage account. The idea of that storage account is before you can use whether it's blob or is disk or is Azure files, you need to be able to on Azure, one has to first of all create an Azure storage. It is this Azure storage that stores our data objects, and we can always create this on what's it called, the Azure portal, which we're definitely going to look at. So when we create this Azure storage, it can now contain all these different types of storage that are listed here on the screen that we'll talk about, which is the what's it called, the blob, the disk, and the file storage. And when we are creating the storage account, which you will get to see because I'll create that basically here, one has to provide maybe a unique name such that you're able to access it, maybe over HTTP, that's the protocol, whether HTTP or HTTPS. But I'll show us that when we start. But let's go ahead to discuss, each of these services, starting with Blob. So what is this blob storage in the way, just like is being explained here on the screen? The blob is basically for storing, large amounts of data unstructured. Now this can be images, this can be video, this can be anything, something that is unstructured. And the acronym, oh sorry, this blob is just, should I say, what's it called, it's not a name, it's something that is it acronym, should I call it acronym, but the full name for this is binary large objects. That's the full meaning of blob. Remember I said they stored amount of unstructured data. And what do I mean by unstructured data? They are basically a large form of array, or an array. That way, these things, I just give us an example. Videos, they are unstructured. Images, they're usually large, they're unstructured. Audios, they are, audios can be it can be can be referred to as data. Equally, audios are large too, and they are structured. Text file, even social media posts, we can regard all of those as unstructured. And if I'm going to compare it to structure, structured data basically, uh, there are things that even you and I are familiar with. When you have the likes of Excel sheets, maybe an Excel file, that way is structured because you have the rows and columns, and they're kind of well organized in a way. For instance, maybe on an Excel sheet, you could have employee information, and in that employee information, it will contain different rows and columns. Maybe on the particular column, you had an employee name, you have their email address, you have their contact address, you have their phone number. That's structured, is being laid out, is well organized. And that's the idea, just speaking in a layman English that I believe I'm able to carry everyone along. That's like the idea of what a structured data example is. So if there's anything you're going to take home regarding unstructured, is the fact that they're not stored in the native format in terms of using this, maybe Excel sheet or even Google Sheets, depending on whatever file that you're using. They have the unstructured data, the predefined data model basically. Sometimes it may be texture, it may be non-texture, depending. And also, those are the different example of unstructured data I've just explained to you. So, what the blob storage does is that it now stores this unstructured data that I gave us the examples. It can store text file, it can store social media files. That's your whatever data you get from your Facebook or from your LinkedIn or Twitter. It can store that. It can store websites. Maybe you have photo sharing and websites. If it's YouTube, I'm just giving us an idea. Those kind of things that it can store. It can store media. Maybe you have an MP3 file, or you have a particular audio, or you have a particular video file. That is what blob storage stores. Or probably you have, maybe even if it's a business application, things that are not structured, and that's why I said it stores unstructured data, just like we have that listed here on the screen. So that's the idea of blob storage. Okay, we also have disk storage as well. Hello, I'm sorry, someone's mic is not muted. Uh, Kindly help us to mute your mic, please. Okay, once again, based on the house rules, I know one could make a mistake and all, but please, let's try to always mute our mic. It's just such that we don't distract others. That way, we're able to respect other people, on the call as well. All right, thank you. So, for disk storage, this is another type of storage that we have, and basically these disks, they come in different sizes. I'm sure for some of us that were around, was it last week when we created a VM, you would remember that for this VM we're able to select a particular disk size. Okay, so that's disk basically is something that one can use with our Azure VM. Okay, and maybe any other services that can that this you may need a disk as well. So in essence, the disk storage will allow data to be persistently stored, and you can even access this from any VM at disk whatsoever. And of course, if you remember when we're taking the Azure VM, the disk actually come in different sizes. You remember we're looking at this different families, the A series, the B series, the D series, N series, F series, of our different disk. And we also saw that we have this type based on performance level, where we have the SSD, that's a solid state drive, and the traditional one that we all are familiar with, which is the HDD, the hard disk drive. And of course, this has to do with performance. Now we have, if you still remember, from the demonstration or the walkthrough that we did, we have this standard SSD, we have premium SSD as well. Now, basically, one can use the standard SSD or even the standard HDD disk for maybe any less critical work that you're doing. For example, probably you're just doing you're developing a test environment or so, then yes, you're fine with just using a standard SSD. That's the solid state drive or the hard disk drive. And if you have maybe a critical production application and all, of course, you can now go ahead to use a premium disk size. In essence, just take home, we this disk storage is usually used with maybe VM or other application that will allow you to store data persistently. Now, last but not the least, we have the Azure files. That's another type of storage that we have. And for the Azure files, how it works is Azure files give us this, it's a form of file share within the cloud, and this is something that is usually accessible via this standard server message block. That's the SMB protocol. Okay, and we can use this Azure file, to be able to store, you know, basically large file from our on premises. Now, this type of file supports something called identity-based authentication, specifically via this server message block, which I refer to as SMB. Or through the on-premises Active Directory Domain Service (ADDS). I'm sorry, I'm using terminology. There's some things that you just have to explain using its terminology. But in essence, one can always, is this type of storage as well. Now, whether you're using Linux operating system or Mac OS, as long as you have this application, maybe it's running on virtual machine or cloud service, you can always create, or you can always mount this, file share, in order to be able to access maybe a file data, or maybe any desktop application, or whatever. You can always do that, and you can use this in a scenario whereby um, let me see, maybe you want to share a file, anywhere in the world. Then this is your best storage service that you can get to use. Take for instance, you have a particular file in West US. You have another and you're trying to move this file maybe from West US to Europe, West Europe, or anywhere. That's different regions, right? Now, the idea is you can always move that data or that file, whatever you want to share, create a file share such that there'll be a file share within that West US and that of the Europe, maybe West Europe or East Europe, depending on that region. So it gives us that way whereby you can have file share being used to share data between these two regions. And one good thing about file share is the fact that it ensures that the data is usually encrypted at rest as well as in transit. Remember, I told us about encryption in earlier training where I said we can encrypt data that is either at rest in a particular location, maybe in our disk, VM disk, or data in transit, that is being moved from one location to another. Now, this file share gives us that room to be able to share data in different regions, knowing fully well that our data will be encrypted. So these are the different types of Azure storage services. Okay, let's move on. There's something called the Azure Storage Access Tiers. Okay, and when it comes to access tiers, it has to do with, um, we have different type of them, and um, it's when it comes to Azure storage that we have, all of these tiers that we can use. Azure storage, I would say, is optimized for maybe a particular pattern of data usage in a way, and you can always select, the best tiers for your own need, such that you can store, maybe you can store the data in blob storage or in disk or anything. But then you have these different tiers that can help. So in a way, I'm saying this is about a life cycle management for our storage, and that's what this access tier is all about. Okay, so within Azure, for instance, and of course, I would say it's mainly peculiar with what's it called blob, just giving us like an oversight. So, for instance, I'll say, let me give us the scenario that we can relate with. We have Azure Blob Storage, and let's say we want to understand the life cycle of that blob storage. Now, with access tier, it will allow you to define a particular policy whereby you can move data from a particular tier to another tier. So we have this different tier. We have the auth, we have the cool, and the archive. Now the auth tier is frequently accessed, and is usually best utilized for that data that you access daily. So if you have data that from time to time you try to access, you review, you save, you update, or you just get to use it from time to time, maybe on daily basis, and all of it. Probably that file could even be a photo. You have to access it from time to time. It could even be probably the social media data. Remember, we said these are the kind of blob storage and all. This something, anything, any data whatsoever, that you get to access regularly. Then your best tier is the auth tier. So in essence, I'm just saying that our blob storage gives us, that different tier, and alt is one of it. So that's why on the screen here, I say optimize for storing data that is accessed frequently. That's particular data that every time when you get to work or for anything you have to do, you just access it from time to time. Then this is the best tier. Now the cool tier in the way is used for that data that you access infrequently. you know Maybe that data that you don't access too often. Just like on the screen here, I say optimize for storing data that is infrequently accessed or stored at least 30 days. So it's not like all those data that you have to use from time to time and all of it. It's just one off, maybe once in 30 days, or just one of you. That's when you get to access this data. Then the best tier that is suited for that is the cool tier. Okay, now this then the last one, which is archive. Now this is for data that you rarely access at all. Maybe you want to back up your data, or you need to keep maybe a particular data for historical reasons or something. Then this is the best option, because you can have that. That's the tier that you have for data that you least frequently access. So remember, I was talking about life cycle earlier, and like I said, this life cycle is something you can use within the Azure storage that we've just learned about, where you can define a policy such that your data can move from one tier to another. Take for instance, you can have a policy. That policy can specify that, okay, on this blob storage that I have, there are different data in that blob storage. So you can define that policy to say, if there's a particular data that I access frequently every time, now let that data be in auth tier. Now, if there's a data that, after no, maybe I only get to access it once in 30 days, just saying for an example. And you can even define yours to say once in 90 days. It depends. It depends on you. It depends on what, the organization is trying to achieve. They can decide, okay, let's just access once in 30 days now, or once in 90 days. That kind of data, you can have a policy that if you have that kind of data or housed within your block storage, let it move to cool. Okay, and if there's that data that you haven't accessed you don't get to access maybe for the next 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, that's quite a while, then let him move to archive. Okay, so it's just like you can have a policy on your blob storage such that it's now being moved automatically without you manually putting this different data in different access tier. Automatically, this is what happened. Okay, so let's assume I have a particular, you know, what's it called? I'm trying to think of a situation or a scenario rather. Okay, so let me paint this scenario if it will even address more or give us a clearer idea of this access tier. For Azure, we have different location for Azure, and you know this location probably depending on where you store your file, you may have to, there's some files that possibly you may have to um audit maybe in 2 years or 5 years or in 10 years or whatever. Now you have this particular data that, yes, you access often, but then, if all of them are in the same tier, let's say odd tier, for instance, you're going to be spending more money. That's something I would like us to know, okay? Because the different tiers will let us understand, the pricing. So there's a pricing for these different tiers. If you have a data that you're accessing from time to time and all, of course, you pay more. Okay, and if you have a particular file that it's less, of infrequently accessed, once in 30 days, once in 90 days, depending on what you get to use that file for, then it's best that such file, that's why I said the management lifecycle is like that solution that you are able to define policy on your Azure storage. And if you have, data that you don't get to access maybe in the next 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years, maybe you're just keeping those data for historical reason, then it's better they're on archive, because with archive you pay less, you don't get to access this data often. And also those are the different what's it called, access tier that we have. So I just gave us the scenario. I don't know if we have any question before we move on, please. Any question? Okay, so in the absence of no question, let's move on to the next. Okay, so next year we have the Azure Database Services. Azure Database Services. And for our database, just like we've learned about storage, we equally have database services, and we have the different types. We have the Azure Cosmos DB, we have the SQL database, we have the Azure database for MySQL, we have the Azure database for post GRE. So these are the different databases that we have. And of course, when it comes to database, just like the name implies, it's just it's also part of the services we use. Sometimes you could use your database, is where you could store data in at rest. You can have data at rest in this database environment. And of course, starting with Cosmos DB, for instance, Cosmos DB is how do I put that now? Our Cosmos DB basically is that, globally distributed, should I, multimodal database service basically. And what that means is you can always maybe independently scale this storage maybe across a number of regions worldwide. And with this Cosmos DB, you can even take advantage of the fact that it's fast, is something that you can access the data in seconds. And you can even use, we have different APIs for this DB that we have. And in a way, the Cosmos DB give us this comprehensive service level agreement for the throughput, latency, even availability, as well as consistent guarantees. And I would say, so let's take for instance, you have a particular organization that provides, let's say, they have their own public training portal, and this public training portal is being used by customers around the globe, or in different globe. Then of course, kindly mute your mic, please. Sorry, someone, your mic is not muted. Kindly mute, please. Okay, so I was trying to explain, giving us a scenario that, okay, situations whereby you can have, a Cosmos DB being used. And of course, Cosmos DB is usually very flexible, and it stores data in, there's something called ARS format. ARS means the atom record sequence format. Okay, this data is usually abstracted, then is projected maybe in form of an API, and you can have different APIs. I don't know if some of us have heard of MongoDB, or maybe the like. So they're like Cassandra, tables, Grammarly. They're just different, APIs that we have. Equally, we have the SQL database, or you can call it Azure SQL database. Now, depending on how you want to call it, either way, it's fine. Whether you call it Azure SQL database or Azure SQL database, no, it's actually a relational database. Okay, and this basically it's usually based on the Microsoft SQL database engine we have. With SQL database, one can get high performance as well as reliable and secure database. You can use this kind of database to build any data-driven application that you have, or maybe it's a website that has maybe programming language of your choice. So with this, you really don't have to, think about the infrastructure that you want to manage. So take for instance, you want to create pass any of these platform as a service, maybe Azure App Service, for instance. Now, with Azure App Service, you don't have to worry about any underlying infrastructure. Okay, what you care about or what you focus on is your application, your data, as well as application. That's why it is directed towards programmers, developers, and all of them. So with this SQL database, it will handle all of the database management function. Maybe when it comes to backups, you want to do backup, you want to do upgrade, you want to do patching and all, you are able to use this SQL database. And that's why it's more or less like, a pass offering in a way. That's the SQL database. Although each of these services, there's an offering for it, and that's why you're saying DAS, that's the database as a service. But if you're going to look at the three major offerings, or the three core offerings, which is the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, as well as software as a service. Now, this SQL database, we can categorize it under um, platform as a service. Although if you drill down further to expatiate, we can now, like, because we have different things as a service. We have the likes of container as a service, we have identity as a service, we have different offerings, even function as a service, and so on and so forth. But at this level, I would such that we are not confused, let's just maintain the fact that we have three cloud service offerings, and that's the EAS, PaaS, and SaaS. And for now, just think of the fact that the Azure database is a platform as a service database engine. Just for now, just maintain it that way so that you're not in any way confused. And as we move on, we can now understand what this database as a service is all about. So in essence, you can always create your SQL database to have maybe high availability or high performance when it comes to data storage layer for your application or your solution within Azure. Then this is something that is for you. Then we equally have the Azure database for MySQL. Well, now for this, I would say it's also a relational database. I mean, the MySQL, and this service is in the cloud. Now it's based on we have different versions, basically different version of the MySQL, and Microsoft, when it comes to SLA, that's service level agreement, they do give the SLA of 99.99% in terms of availability. Yes, that's what it gives. And what MySQL does is it keeps your application running 247. Okay, and with this MySQL server, you can take advantage of its built-in security because it has fault tolerance and even data protection that you have. Of course, it's expensive in terms of pricing, but then you get that, up and running services, and you can even use maybe it's for a point in time whereby you have to recover a particular server to an earlier state, to the extent that you can restore maybe a data that is as far back as maybe 35 days ago, is something that you can do. So in a way, our MySQL data, it gives us this built-in high availability, and is something that, of course, you can scale them within seconds. It has the ability to protect sensitive data that I told us about, whether the data is at rest or the data is in transit. Regardless, you can even do automatic backup, and with this MySQL database. So that's one thing I would like to know. As we move on, when we try to flesh out some of this overview we are looking at, we can try to see the difference between the regular SQL as well as MySQL. Now, the last but not the least, here on screen, we have the Azure database for PostgreSQL SQL. Okay, and of course, this PostgreSQL is also a relational database service in the cloud, and is something that with this you can get those benefits you get in MySQL as well as SQL database. It's when it comes to pricing, you can have like a predictable performance that is based on the particular tier that you choose. And this PostgreSQL basically is available into two deployments. If in case you want to deploy it, you can either deploy it based on single server, or you can use a hyperscale deployment, for that. So that's for the post GRE, so to say. So I think these are just the different database services that we have. I don't know if we have any question before I move on, please. Okay, so there's still one more here, and basically this has to do with the Azure SQL Manage instance. Okay, like I said, I'll still take our question possibly at the end of this slide. When it comes to Azure SQL Database Manage instance, it's I'm thinking of how I can put it that we would understand. Okay, I would say it actually represents that managed SQL Server database engine that is being hosted on the cloud. This also gives us this platform as a service database services, and it has like three different category. You can get a standalone database, which is usually isolated and a self-contained database service that is usually designed for if you have a modern cloud application, or you have a particular software as a service solution, then you can use this standalone database. Of course, it's under the Azure SQL Managed Instance. Then you can equally have Elastic Pool. Now, the Elastic Pool is a way whereby you have a group of standalone database that somehow share the same resources. And the last one is now managed instance. Now, what do we even mean by managed instance? Okay, it's this managed instance is something that you know it has that features of having a Windows login, and it's something that enables you to move to the Azure cloud, any database that you have on your on-premises. Maybe you have, your on-premises database server and all. You are able to move all of these to the cloud, and you can use this Azure SQL managed instance to have, those service, in the cloud. So that's a way I can paint this. So I would say the managed service is that latest offering when it comes to the Azure SQL database services, and they kind of share the same code based on the version. The SQL Server Database Engine has that feature that gives us this high performance, security update, and a whole lot of that. So that's why from the screen here you see fully managed, evergreen platform as a service. That's why I said it's also regarded as PaaS. And you have your automatic patching, your update, just like I've mentioned. You can exchange existing license, for discounted rate, and I will explain that further. Let's assume on your traditional on-premises where you have your infrastructure set up, you have your network, you have your database and all. Now, if you're trying to, integrate or deploy your cloud infrastructure. Now, if because you have this existing, database on premises, you can get, a discounted rate. I don't know if you remember while we are creating our VM, whereby it was asking if we already have an existing license and know that we can utilize. That way we are able to get something cheaper because we already have it in existence. So you can equally use this within to get the Azure hybrid benefits in the way. So basically these are just the different database services that we have. Okay, and lastly here, before I take question, is about the Azure Marketplace. And our Azure Marketplace is where our customers, users like you and I, or organization that is can take advantage of. Now, the marketplace is where you can explore uh, different services, different resources where you want to purchase or you want to provision application, you know different things whatsoever. You have that in the Azure Marketplace. So it's more or less like you having that open source container. So depending on what you're trying to get, whether it's virtual machine images or database images, or you want to build application or deploy software, tools, and so much more. We have that within the marketplace. So I'm going to, sorry, guys, please, can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. Okay, so before I go on to demonstrate the lab environment, I don't know if we have any question, please. Any question? Any question? Any clarification and all? Okay, because I've come to the end, of this particular slide or module that we're doing. So what I'm going to do, even though I have a class to jump to, is to quickly go on through the Azure portal environment to show some things, and possibly we can even do one or two labs before we call it a day. So this is time for questions, please. Any question, any clarification that you need and all?
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
My name is Daniela. I
Okay.
joined the class late, so I didn't get full information about everything. So I don't know if you can start. I don't know, but I didn't get full information because I started the class late.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that, basically. So what I would just suggest is maybe you can try to refer to the recording at the end of the training. because after each training, the recording is available to us to reference, such that we can watch the video over again if we have missed out some things and all. I may not be able to go back, such that we don't drag the class back, and that's one of the essence of why we have this recording. So with the recording, I'm sure that would help.
Thank you, Ma.
All right. Okay, any other question? If not, I can just bring up the lab environment and we could just explore one or two things. Okay, so when it comes to marketplace, I would say, so for instance, let's say I'm trying to search for a virtual machine. Now you would see here services, and you would see the marketplace, for this service. Let me go to all services first of all. Now, these are all the services. I'm sure I talked about this earlier. These are all the services in terms of categories that we have. And now, this marketplace that we talked about last is that is a commercial environment whereby it will connect, whether it's a business environment or government agencies. It gives you that solution that are usually built by partners. Okay, you can get it from marketplace. Now what happened is Microsoft partners usually would create and manage, maybe offer maybe their partner center, where different customers, different organizations can buy their solutions. Okay, it's just like when you say you have, Microsoft Store. Okay, let me use something we can relate to it. It's just like saying we have Play Store. Play Store, for those of us that are Android users on the phone. On Play Store, you can have access to different applications, right? Now, these different applications are owned by different people, whereby they host their services, and you have that within the Play Store. That idea, if you can relate with that, that's similar to what this marketplace, gives to you. You can have Microsoft App Source, you can have, resellers in the cloud solution provider program, within this, marketplace. So it's a commercial environment. And for instance, let me say what's the difference between Microsoft App Source as well as Marketplace is the fact that for Microsoft App Source, it will include maybe business solution, maybe like apps that you can integrate within um, the Azure platform, or apps that you can integrate within. Sorry, I mean, I'm talking about App Store, App Source. You can integrate it with Microsoft 365, those the SaaS offering, software as a service. You can integrate it with Dynamics 365. You can integrate with Power Platform service. But our Azure Marketplace, basically it's include maybe IT or developer solutions, where you have it built on Azure and is specifically for just Azure. I don't know if you're able to get me, and that's why while I was searching earlier to say, okay, I was searching for virtual machine, you would see, yes, the services here, and you can see the marketplace. Let me click on SEO so that we have the idea of what this marketplace looks like, and we can even explore it together. Okay, so for this is the marketplace, and basically for marketplace you can have your you know different, you can see service providers can, if you want to get the Azure MSP experts, we have I think we have over 900 sorry, 90 if I'm not mistaken, MSP Azure expert all over the world. I think we have one in Nigeria as well. There is a company partner, Microsoft partner company that does this. Then you can have whatever you choose in your marketplace. You can browse the marketplace to have your favorite. Let me click on that so that we can explore together. So you can see the different. Now this is based on my search. I was trying to search for virtual machine, right? But let me clear that search bar. Now, these are different services. We have over 1,000 of them, solutions. Okay. You can see here for managed service, if you want to, leverage on this marketplace, you have all of these different services available to you. Of course, they have their own unique pricing. We have that of the AI and machine learning, that's the artificial intelligence. And now, one thing you would notice, if it's for Microsoft, if that solution is for Microsoft, it will be stated. If the solution is for a different provider, it will also be stated. Now, there was a point where Microsoft announced that they want to deprecate their Azure blockchain service. I think that was around September, thereabout. I'm just giving us an example. Now, basically, what different organizations would do is they either migrate their service to another service offering or solution, and all, since Azure is deprecating theirs. Now, with this marketplace, you can get a service that would help with that continuity. Okay, so for instance, maybe you have the likes of Quorium blockchain. Now, Quorium is not owned by Microsoft. Okay, I'll say it's owned by, is it consensus team or thereabout? I know, where you can now migrate to, you can use their service or maybe even migrate your existing Azure blockchain. So this, that particular example I gave us is not owned by Microsoft. So within the marketplace, you see different solutions: the ones that are owned by Microsoft, the ones that are, for other services. That's why the marketplace is, should I say, have it as an open source in a way. That way, it's just a commercial. When we say market, you can get anything, like when it has to do with collaboration, or thing is, whether it has to do with website or product, you can just get that within the marketplace. And now, of course, our marketplace are available in is it 141 regions, if I am not mistaken. Now, take a look at compute. For compute, we have different services. Now, we know that of Microsoft virtual machine skill set is a service, is a solution, okay, but owned by Microsoft. We have the SQL Server. Now, the ones that hide, we have the Windows Server. Now, the ones that are not Microsoft, you have the likes of Red Hat. So what that means is, within your Azure space, you want to, deploy a compute service. It's not compulsory, that you're using the Microsoft product. It depends on your business requirement. That would, let you know the kind of service. But within the marketplace, you can get all of these different services. Okay, we have the Internet of Things. Of course, these ones are hosted by Microsoft. We have migration. You can see the ones with Microsoft. You can see the one with, should I say, third party. Okay. Theta migration platform. I'm sure you can even see their pricing here. $1,000 dollars per month, $400 per month, and different services that are not even owned by Microsoft. When it comes to monitoring and diagnostic, okay, you have different solution as well. You have the one that's, yes, they're Microsoft. They are the ones that are non-Microsoft, if I can use it that way, likes of SolarWind. Yes, it's something that you may deploy. Now, how do organizations decide which one they want to use? It depends on their business requirements. Their business requirement may, it may be something that, okay, what they need is, they need Red Hat, not necessarily Windows Server. What they want you to deploy is Red Hat. Okay, maybe for security networking, I might decide, okay, rather than use that, I want to use Barracuda. It's networking. It's something that you can use within your application. And of course, it's not owned by Microsoft. Okay, but yes, their services are available, which means you can use this kind of services within Azure. Okay, as again, so these are just different things that we can explore within the marketplace. Okay, now let's go ahead. We talked about virtual network, right? So let's try to create a virtual network so that we can all see that together as part of our demonstration. Now, for virtual network, you can go through the menu. where that's my under my menu. I already have it listed as favorite virtual network, or I can use the search bar to do can shorten it VNet. It brings me virtual network. Or I can go through all services. Remember, we talked about how we can explore this um, Azure portal. So let me click on virtual network. 1 minute, this is coming up. Okay, so it's up now. No, these are the ones that I've created already. Now you will notice that last week we created a Textiles VM. Okay, and while we created that VM, we created virtual network between. Remember what we said? The virtual network does communication between Azure resources. Now we can create directly a virtual network. Let me click on create. Now for everything every resource that you want to create, you're required to have a subscription. So I'm going to go ahead to use my virtual studio subscription. Then there's a need for you to have a resource group. So you can always create a new resource group depending on what you're trying to achieve, or you can choose an existing resource group. So I'm just going to maintain the Textiles resource group that I created last week. And now I can give this virtual networking name. So I can call it this is just for test, my VNet 2. And okay, the region. So depending, you can have the region. I'll maintain my West US region, but you have different regions. I'm sure we talked about region, and right now you know what region is. So which means that I want to deploy this my service in the West US region. Now, of course, I can go ahead and choose Hello, please can you all hear me? I felt like I was out within seconds. Can someone please
Yes.
confirm?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I felt this silence like as if I was disconnected. Okay, thanks for that. So here we have the IP address. Of course, this IP address they're automatically created for us by default with the IP address as space. Now we have IP version 4 and version 6, which I'm still going to talk about. I think in the subsequent slides that we are going to talk about this IPv4 or IPv6. We have different types of them are them. And the should I say the clear difference between these two is just their address size. Okay, IP version 4 is common. And the reason why it's common is because it uses that 32-bit address. Then IP version 6 is unique. It's more or less like an hexadecimal. Let me give us an example. For IP version 4, you see the likes of maybe 10.0.0.1. I'm just saying that, offhand at random. Now, when it comes to IP version 6, you will see it in form of an hexadecimal. I, I don't know if that's where you see it with letters and numbers, quite unique and different. You see something like maybe ABC. I'm just saying it. I'm not saying ABC exists too. I'm just using that as an example. Like you see something like maybe ABCD dot BA98 dot 1452 dot 3210. That is usually long. That's what I'm trying to say. And they are 16. For IP version 6, version 4 is just gives us these four octets, just like I said, 10.0.0.1. Now, for example, that's 32 bits, the decimal address. And like I said, it gives like four octets in terms of field. And most of the time, IP version 4 are separated by dots. But IP version 6 is different. It's 128-bit hexadecimal address. It has about 8 fields. And the difference between that is the fact that it's separated by colon, not dots this time around, by colons, and they have their own class. So for instance, our IP version 4, it has different classes of IP address. There are, we have classes like class A, class B, class C, class D, class E. I'm sorry, I'm not going into networking basics. There are some things that in a way we ought to have known them so that we can flow with this training. But our IP version 6 does not have, those kind of classes of address, just to, but I think as we go on, we may still talk about this, but it's just for us to understand. So currently we're using the IP version 4. Now there's a subnet, which is also created by default. Okay, and this subnet is usually part of our, what's it called, a virtual network. So most of the time you can use your subnet is there's something called the subnet max. Okay, it just indicates to us that network portion that we need to use. So there's always that range that we have. We are not making changes there. It's just to talk about, the different tabs so that we can explore and see it for ourselves. Now we have the security part where we have the Bastion host, we have the DDoS protection. I think our module, is it module 3 or module 4? We are going to focus more on security. So for security, we will understand the different things, the likes of Azure Firewall for security, the likes of Azure Bastion for security, the likes of, DDoS protection for security. So these are just, different security solution. Now, if I start talking about that, I think it will take our time. So I'll just wait when we get to that module where we'll focus mainly on security and look at the different security, even the likes of the network security group NSG. We will talk about, all of those things when we're talking about when we get to that module for security. So right now we are not making any changes, but should in case you want to bring up a firewall, for your security perimeter, you want to have the DDoS protection against any DDoS attack on your resource, or you want to have the Azure Bastion such that you can always access, let's say VM, for instance, just within the Azure portal without, specifying a public IP address, then you have all of these options that you can go ahead to enable. Now we'll talk about that when we get to the module where we focus solely on security. Now next year is tags. Now I talked about tags earlier. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago where I said tags basically gives us that way whereby we can organize our resources. Okay, we can logically organize our resources. We can use tags to basically, let's say, to categorize our resources. Of course, this is a test environment, and no, I'm not going to be organizing anything, but that's what tag is about. So next year is to review and create, and of course it will always check the validation, just like when we're creating VM. It will check if the validation will pass or fail. If it passed, then that means we've configured things rightly. If it fails, then we have to review the basic to see if we have missed out a step or we have configured something wrongly. Now once we do this, go ahead to create. So, and this is a very simple way, I'm using the word very simple way, that we can get to create, the virtual network. Okay. So,
I have a question.
please go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to confirm, please. When do we get access to uh, try to do this lab thing? Like, we've only been seeing it. I've not been able to practice it or something.
Okay, so I mentioned to us last time that we are trying to see if we can get, this subscription that everyone can use, but no response yet. However, I equally showed us last week how we can get this on our own from the what's it called? my Visual Studio. And I mentioned to us that this my Visual Studio, it will require you to use your credit card, and $1 equivalent will be deducted from your account. Now, the essence of that is just to ensure that you have a working account that can be referred to. Now, this will give us a trial version for a month. After 1 month, we can cancel the subscription such that your account is not being charged. This is the part where I said I understand people may be afraid, and I remember clearly someone said it's fair enough. On this call, someone said it's fair enough. After all, we are not paying for this training. We should be able to do that on our own. So it's up to you. You need a lab environment. We are trying to see. It's not an entitlement, for us to say we have to give. It's not like the training is paid, and because of that, we need to provide you an environment. No, it's not an entitlement. However, we are trying to, see if we can come up with something such that people are able to get the lab environment for them to practice. I don't know if you get me now. So it's something we are trying to get for us. We don't have it yet. Okay. And that was why I've given us that workaround where we can do that on our own to have that practice environment. And I've showed us how we can get it. In case you were not around last week, which I believe you were, you can refer to the previous training and see the steps on how you can get this environment. If not, then you may not be able to practice the lab. And I'll tell you, we all kind of need this lab, because the lab is what will give us the hands-on experience. It's not enough to, listen to the theoretical parts. The lab gives us that hands-on experience whereby we are able to even, get a clearer understanding of what Tosin has been saying so far. I don't know if I am able to answer your question, please.
Yes, yes, you will. Thanks.
All right. Okay, I think someone said I can't see your screen. Is it the same thing for everyone? I'm sorry, I'm just reading the chat now. Is it the same thing for everyone? Is it that everyone
No.
cannot see my screen?
No,
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 No, I
no.
can see your screen. Okay,
I
so
can
for
see
the
your
person,
screen.
all right, thank you. For the person that cannot see my screen, if you don't mind, probably you could just um, log out, or should I say, end this call and rejoin again. Possibly to be you'll be able to see my screen. Okay, so what we've done so far is to deploy the virtual. All right, great. Thanks for the notification. I can now see your screen. Okay, fine. So let's go to resource. If we go to resource, we'll see that we have that virtual network in here. So my VNet 2, that's the name of this network. Now, although this step may be long, but it's something that we can all look at together. And that's the idea of using this virtual network. Remember, I said it brings about communication. So we've been able to create a virtual network, right? Now, the next thing we should do is to create two virtual machine in a virtual network. And how does that work? We have to go to virtual machine. So let's do that together. Let me see if I have virtual machines. So let's try to create. I think I created the VM textilers, right? Let's see if I can use this, or maybe for the benefit of those that are just joining, I can just quickly create another one. Now I would encourage us, for those of us that wants to, on their own, use the my Visual Studio to gain the benefit and all. After every of your lab practices, I would say, you know clean clean your resources. That is, delete it at the end of the day. Okay, such that it doesn't incur money on you. And if you remember the training we did last time, one should always shut down, create that management to always shut down the VM environment so that it doesn't incur charges on us. Okay, so let's quickly create another VM. I have, you always need a subscription. You require a resource group. Already I have created a resource group. So if you want to create new, all you have to do is click on this create new link, and you'll be able to give your resource group a name. For me, I'll use my existing resource group, which is Textilers, that we created last week together. And now we want to give the virtual machine a name. The first virtual machine I created was Textilers VM. I'll name this Textilers 2 VM. Textilers 2 VM. Okay, and I'll still maintain my West US region. Of course, you have different region that you can use the East US, you can use the East US too, depending on the region. Remember, I said organization specifically use region that is closest to them, or the one closer to their customer, depending. So availability option, no redundancy is required. For our image, I'm going to use this 2016. I used 2016 the last time. I was used maybe 2019 data center this time around. Now, Azure Spot Instance, I do not need that. Then my size, I'll maintain the B2MS because it's cheap, and specifically, I'm just doing it for test purposes. It's not for my production environment, so I'm fine with this particular disk size. Now, for my administrator name, I usually advise, because it's just for test, maintain the same VM name. That way, you do not forget what your username is. Now, create password, unique password to you. It's not the best practice, but because it's just test environment, I would say,
Hello.
yes, please.
I can't see your screen.
I'm sorry, can we confirm again? Just to be sure that it's not just you.
I can see your screen from here.
Please, if you cannot see my screen, kindly rejoin. I'm so sorry you have to experience that. Possibly network from your hand or something. If you can just, hand the call from your hand and rejoin again, possibly it will be better. Thank you. Okay, so for password, like I said, it's not the best practice to use the same password all through, no. But for test purpose and the things you'll be doing within your test environment, I would say maintain the same password so that you don't get frustrated in using different passwords. It's just for tests. You're using it to practice, so it's fine that you maintain the same password that you may be using all through this training. So I have my password there. Now, public inbound ports. Basically, I need HDP to be able to connect to, this server. But then I can just include SSH, which I might not need. It's just to show us, the inbound port. I've gone through this process before. I'm just creating this again because we want to see how we can use the VNet for two virtual machines. That's what we're trying to achieve here. So once we are done, I can just click create new, review and create. But then I'll just quickly go through these different tabs. I'm not making changes, but to get me to management. And the reason for that is so that I can have automatic shutdown to confirm if I have it, enabled. Okay, so I can put here to say once it's 7 p.m. This 7 p.m. means our time zone is UTC plus one, so which means by 8 automatically it will shut down. Here it's saying, do I want to get notification before the shutdown? I don't think I want, so I'll remove that, and I can even change this timing to say sorry, 6, so that once it's 7 it shuts down for me. So I've made that changes that I want. I can now click on review and create. Now during this process to do the validation, you know once validation pass, it means everything I've done is correct. If it fails, then I have to review to be sure that I haven't made mistakes while I'm configuring to deploy this VM. So now the validation is passed. This is an environment for me to review all the things I've put together so far. And of course, I can go ahead to click create. So that way we have, the, what's it called? Virtual machine in here. Okay. So deployment is in progress. Let's be patient, please. So once the it has fully deployed, I would go ahead to, you know, the environment itself. So still in progress. While it's in progress, please you can ask a question. Okay, we have to wait for this to complete actually. Without the completion, we may not be able to move on. Okay, still in progress. Well, sometimes this takes a little while, and at that point, we just have to be patient, please. Okay, taking this through with us together. Now this is completed. Once it's completed, we can click on go to resource. Now take note that for every completion, it will always notify you. You know, you see the icon, the notification icon, usually on the blue ribbon. It will always notify you if the deployment succeeded or it failed, and depending on the status, you will see that on the notification. So let's go to resource. And for resource, let me try to, click networking. Don't forget we're trying to focus on networking here. Okay, so this is, the networking um, option that we have just for us to see. So we have the inbound rule, we have the outbound port rule, we have the, application security group, and we have the uh, load balancer as well. So these are the different, the basically we refer to this as NSG, Network Security Group. Now, one thing I would like us to go back to is that virtual network that we created, VNet. So, I created a VNet, which I named my VNet 2. Okay. And in this, my VNet 2, we're trying to actually see if we can use this to, connect to VM. Okay, and basically this is it. Now I think I missed out something because while I was creating the VM, what I was supposed to do was I shouldn't have created the virtual network while I was creating the initial VM, such that we're able to use this separately created VNet, for that VM. I don't know if you're understanding me. So that's what we're supposed to do. Meaning, while I was creating, when I got to the networking tab, I'm supposed to, that default that was created for us, I should have replaced it with the existing VM. This is what I meant. So let me do that again. That's my mistake, since I'm not just creating a virtual machine. Please let's know. I'm sorry about that, basically, but I'll show us what I meant. So I'll name this tech stylers v VVM, um, West US, no infrastructure, 2019 data center. These maintain the same name, password. I'm doing this very quickly because I've explained it earlier. So I just want to show us what I missed out when I created the first one. Okay, so inbound ports. Now, when I click on next, on that disk, it is fine. Now, under this networking, it created a default VNet for me. Now, what I was supposed to do is at this point, I'm supposed to select that my VNet 2 I initially created. So instead of going with the default, I'll click on the one I already created to change these VNets. I don't know if you're getting me. So this was the part I actually missed. And once I do this, I can now go ahead to review and create. Okay, that's the virtual machine 3. So this will continue to deploy. Let me see if I can duplicate this tab while I go ahead to navigate to the previous VM. So I created Textiles 2 VM initially. And for the network, let me see if I can modify here. Okay. Okay, so I have the virtual network, my VNet 2. Okay. And how? All right. So the idea is we want to create two VMs, right? And these two VMs, we want them to communicate. So we created Textiles 2. Let me not confuse us. Let me do this so that you understand what we are basically doing. Let me um, create another one. So I created first one, Textiles 3, which the deployment is still in progress. Now I want to create another one, which is another VM, but this time around, this another VM, I also want to use the virtual network that I created. Okay, so in essence, I have this. Kindly mute your mic, please. Okay, so I have here Textiles 2 VM. So one minute. Sorry, please, if you're not speaking to me, kindly mute your mic, please. Thank you. So here, I think I can now create another one. Textiles, where is it? Textiles resource group. Let me see. I should have that already. Okay, Textiles resource group. Textiles for VM. Yeah, I'll move quickly to the name. Sorry, this should take a while. It's actually simple. The idea is I'm creating two VMs. The VM, I'm changing their VNet to the initial VNet we created so that they can have communication. That's all. That's what we are basically doing here. Okay, I'll maintain the same password. Then next, when it comes to networking, this is what I'm particular about, such that the virtual network, I'll use that network we created, my VNet 2. That's the network we want to use. Okay, and then we can go ahead to create and review. Now, once we are done with that, we can now go ahead to test connection. That's all. Okay, that's what this particular slide is about. Okay, so it's deploying. Once it completes, we are going to log into the VM we initially created and the other VM we also created. Okay, so 1 minute, that's still coming up. The deployment is in progress. Please, I don't know if we have any question. I said we're going to do 1 hour here, but it's fine. I'll just complete the 2 hours already, and the timing of the class has been moved forward. Of the M365 class, I earlier told us about that I have to go join. It has been moved forward, so that way I'm able to complete our required 2 hours training with us. Okay. So again, just to let you know what we are doing right now is still on VNet. We said our VNet, basically we can use it to for communication between resources, right? And of course we've been able to um, create two VMs, and these two VMs, they're using the same VNet that we initially created. So if you remember, when we created the first VM, it was my VM2. That was the VNet we used. When I created this new one, it's equally my VNet2. Okay, so how do I know that? So from, excuse me, virtual network, you see my VNet2, that's what I use. And let me go to the previous one. Let's see if I have to refresh. So I think the VM3 I created did not deploy. I don't know why, but let me check this. Text alas 2 VM. Okay, so equally the VNet as well is my VNet2. So the idea is, let's try to connect Textiles 2 VM as well as Textiles 4 VM. Let's connect both of them. So what we first of all need to know is the status. We can see that the status here is running, right? So we'll connect to this VM. So click on this connect icon such that we can use RDP, remote desktop protocol. Now it will require us to download the file, and once we've downloaded the file, we can open so that we can enter our username and password. So click connect, and connect, it will give us that room where we can enter username and password. So I can have, what's it called, textilers VM, sorry, textilers 2 VM. Then I'll enter my password and connect. So it should give us an icon for our remote desktop connection. All we have to do, don't worry, this is not an issue. It's just because we do not have certificates with this. So let's just go ahead and click yes, and this will bring up our VM. Okay, so this is what our VM looks like. So it looks like another system within the environment. So yes, this is what it looks like, and it's still coming up, please. Okay, so I'll click yes, and let's so because it's a server, to always load this server manager. Let me minimize that. Okay, so what I would like us to do is, we want to see if there's connection. So I'll try and use PowerShell. There's a tool called the PowerShell tool. So let me type PowerShell here, and I'll go ahead to right click to always run as an administrator. So we have different, the passion and so I want to try and ping, um, which one is this? I think I'm connected to two, right? So let me try and ping the other VNet, VM. That should be textilers, textilers for VM. Did I spell this correctly? Textilers for VM. Okay, 1 minute. Quest timeout. Should be it pinging this and the request time. Okay, so it has started pinging for me. I don't know if you're able to understand what we just did because they're using the same network. So from a particular VM that I created, I was able to ping the other one. At first, it was the request timeout based on no connection, but eventually it saw that connection. So what I'm saying is, okay, let me do this. I connected to Textilas 2 VM. Let me connect to Textilas 4. RDP. Let me download files as well. Open. Um, Let me connect to that one too. So this one, remember why I said you should maintain the same name. That way you don't have to forget. Tech stylers 4 VM password. Okay, so yes, and let's wait for it to connect. So this is what textilers. This is textilers 4 VM. It's coming up. Now, how do you know it's different? Well, take note of this IP address 40.86. This is the public IP address 171.13. Let me check the previous one that I opened so that you know that there are actually two different VM that I have connected. Let me click here. Trying to bring that up, please. Let me minimize and then so that I can know. So there are two VMs. See this one, Textiles 2 104.42.175.4, then textilers 4. So what I want to do within the textilers 4 is to ping textilers 2, just like I did, so that we are able to see this, please. Okay, again, I'll just type PowerShell and with this PowerShell, I'll run as administrator. Please permit me to drink water. Okay, thanks. So let's ping the initial one. Ping textilers. Sorry for the spelling. Stylers. 2 VM. Okay, at first to give this request timeout and not based on service, but eventually it should still establish communication. Okay, all right, so although for now I'm still not hand and hold, but this is how you would know that the two VMs are connected. Okay, let me go to the previous one. Sorry, was it this one? Okay, Yeah. I don't know if we have any question because it's 12, but this is how we go about, connecting to VMs. You connect first VM, you use the first thing you do is we create a VNet, right? The second thing we do is we create VM1. Now that VM1 for the networking, we use the VNet that we created. We go ahead to create VM2. For that VM2, we use the network that is the VNet that we initially created. Now, once we do this, we connect and try to ping the previous one, and we should be able to, establish communication. That way, you're able to know that okay, there's connection between the two VM. I don't know if we have any question, please, as we have come to the end of training.
Okay, good afternoon. Basically, what you are saying is that the VNet is just what you are using to connect two virtual machines. Hope I'm right.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Another question, please. Okay, in the absence of no question, we have actually come to the end of this training. We've successfully completed module 2. I would say thank you all for your time, and please the lab exercises, like the step by step of this lab, you can find that in the channel, the tab within our channel where we have all the materials for this lab exercises. So the ones we've done previously, how to create a VM, the step guide, it's a Word document. You'll find it there, just to simulate and have our hands-on experience to practice on our own. Then what I've equally done today in terms of, establishing connection within two VMs, is something that we can also go ahead to create within, sorry, I mean this step-by-step guide is also within there. So the one we've done last week, the one we've done this week is within that channel, the tab within the channel for Azure training. So in the absence of no other question, I would say thank you all for your time. And we've come to the end of the training. See you next week.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.